In ancient world there existed a mysterious group of seafaring raiders who lived during the late Bronze Age in the eastern Mediterranean region. Let's picture the Mediterranean coastline around 1276 to 1178 BCE. It was a time of turmoil, thanks to a confederation of marauders known as the Sea Peoples. These maritime raiders, largely a mystery when it comes to their origin, terrorized coastal towns and cities, with a particular focus on Egypt. They played a significant role in what scholars call the Bronze Age collapse, a period of intense upheaval spanning roughly from 1250 BCE to 1150 BCE, although they were once considered the prime culprits. Unraveling the nationality of the Sea Peoples is like chasing a phantom. The primary records about them come from Egyptian sources, which describe them mainly in the context of battle. For instance, an inscription on the stele at Tanis reads, "They came from the sea in their warships, and none could stand against them." This is typical of how the Egyptians referred to these enigmatic invaders. The Sea Peoples comprised various tribes, as listed in Egyptian records, including the Shrouded, Sheklesh, Luka, Tersha, and Akawasha. Beyond Egypt, they also targeted the Hittite Empire, the Levant, and other areas along the Mediterranean coast. Scholars have proposed and debated their possible origins, suggesting Etruscan/Trojan, Italian, Philistine, Mycenaean, and even Minoan connections. Yet, as of now, no definitive accounts shed more light on the mystery. Consequently, such claims remain conjecture. It's important to note that the ancient inscriptions do not name the coalition as the Sea Peoples. This is a modern term coined by French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero around 1881 CE. Maspero came up with this designation because the ancient reports suggested that these tribes came from the sea or from the islands. However, they never specify which sea or islands. Thus, the Sea Peoples' origin continues to baffle historians. The three great pharaohs who recorded their conflicts and victories against the Sea Peoples are Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BCE, his son and successor Meremptah, 1213 to 1203 BCE, and Ramesses III, 1186 to 1155 BCE. All three pharaohs claimed significant triumphs over these adversaries, and their inscriptions provide the most detailed accounts of the Sea Peoples. Ramesses the Great was a highly effective ruler in ancient Egypt's history. Among his many accomplishments was securing Egypt's borders against nomadic tribes and safeguarding vital trade routes for the nation's economy. In the early years of his reign, the Hittites seized the crucial trade center of Kadesh, located in modern-day Syria. In response, in 1274 BCE, Ramesses led his forces to recapture it. Ramesses asserted a significant victory and documented the details, emphasizing the story's recitation to the public. In Ramesses the Great's account, the Sea Peoples were mentioned not only as Hittite allies but also as mercenaries in his own army. No mention was made of their origins, leaving scholars to infer that the audience was already familiar with this information. These invaders needed no introduction. Ramesses also described how, in the second year of his reign, he defeated these people in a naval battle off the Egyptian coast. Ramesses allowed the Sea Peoples' warships and supply vessels to approach the Nile's mouth, where he positioned a small Egyptian fleet in a defensive formation. He then waited for the Sea Peoples to attack the seemingly weak Egyptian force before launching a full-scale attack from their flanks, resulting in the sinking of their ships. This battle appeared to involve primarily the Shrouded Sea Peoples, or at least, they are the only ones mentioned. Many were later conscripted into Ramesses' army, with some serving as his elite bodyguards. Ramesses, known for his confidence in his inscriptions, conveyed the impression that he had neutralized the Sea Peoples' threat. Nevertheless, inscriptions by his successors would tell a different story. Meremptah, Ramesses II's son and successor, continued to grapple with the Sea Peoples. They allied with the Libyans to launch an invasion of Egypt's Nile Delta. In the fifth year of his reign, in 1209 BCE, Meremptah described how Mai, the Libyan chief, joined forces with the Sea Peoples to invade Egypt. He noted that the Libyan allies came from the seas to the north and identified their territories as Eqesh, Teresh, Luka, Shrouded, and Shekelesh. Scholars have since attempted to locate these lands and identify the names they later adopted, but with limited success. The mystery of the Sea Peoples persists, with as many theories about their identity as there are scholars to dispute them. At this stage in their history, it seemed that the Sea Peoples aimed to establish permanent settlements in Egypt. The invading force brought household goods and building tools with them. After prayer, fasting, and divine consultations on the matter of strategy, Meremptah confronted the Sea Peoples at the battlefield at Pi. Egyptian forces, comprising infantry, cavalry, and archers, vanquished more than 6,000 of their adversaries and captured members of the royal Libyan family. Meremptah proclaimed complete victory, and Egypt's borders were once again secure. To commemorate his achievement, he immortalized the story on the Karnak inscription and the famous Meremptah stele located in his funerary temple at Thebes. The conclusion of the Meremptah stele reads, "The princes prostrate themselves, saying, Peace. Not one of 9 bows dares raise his head. Tenu is plundered while Hatti is peaceful, Canaan is seized by every evil, Ashkelon is carried off and Gezer is seized, Yenom is made as that which never existed, Israel is wasted without seed, Kor is made a widow of Egypt, all the lands are at peace, everyone who travels has been subdued by the king of Upper and Lower Egypt." The 9 bows referred to the customary term used by Egyptians for their adversaries, and Tenu stands for Libya. The inscription conveys that Meremptah defeated all the contentious regions that rose against Egypt, bringing peace. Notably, the Meremptah stele is the first historical reference to Israel. However, intriguingly, it does not refer to a country or region but to a people. The reference to Israel continues to captivate historians and researchers today. While Meremptah was not particularly concerned with Israel or any of the other countries he listed, he was confident that the Sea Peoples had been defeated, and Egypt was secure for the future. However, like his predecessor, Meremptah would be proven wrong, as the Sea Peoples would make a return. Picture ancient Egypt during the reign of the pharaoh Ramesses III. It was a time of great turmoil as the Sea Peoples, a confederation of formidable invaders, launched an assault on the Egyptian trading center at Kadesh. This was their second attempt to invade Egypt. They began their campaign with swift coastal raids, much like they did during the time of Ramesses II. Then, they pressed towards the Nile Delta. In 1180 BCE, Ramesses III confronted them, but the Sea Peoples returned in full force. Ramesses III left us with his own victory inscription that describes this fateful invasion. The foreign countries conspired in their islands. All at once the lands were removed and scattered in the fray. No land could resist their arms, from Hatti, Kode, Karchemish, Arzawa, and Elashia on, being cut off at one time. A camp was set up in Amuru. They desolated its people, and its land was like that which had never existed. They were coming forward toward Egypt, while the flame was prepared for them. Their confederation was the Pelset, Chikha, Shekelesh, Danaan, and Washesh, lands united. They laid their hands upon the lands as far as the circuit of the earth. Their hearts were confident and trusting as they said, "Our plans will succeed." The list of countries in the Sea Peoples coalition, like Pelset and Chikha, possibly corresponds to regions in Palestine or Syria, but this remains uncertain. What is clear is that these were the same people, with a few additions, who joined forces with the Libyans to attack Egypt in the time of Meremptah. During this invasion, as in the earlier one, the Sea Peoples allied with the Libyans and displayed unwavering confidence in their quest for victory. They had already annihilated the Hittite state, referred to in the inscription as Hatti, around 1200 BCE. When Ramesses III mentions that they were coming forward toward Egypt, it likely means they were advancing steadily without encountering resistance. Ramesses III, well aware of his predecessor's clashes with these marauders, recognized the need for caution. Instead of engaging them on the battlefield, he opted for guerrilla tactics. He set up ambushes along the coast and throughout the Nile Delta. Notably, he made masterful use of archers, concealing them along the shoreline. They showered the approaching ships with a barrage of arrows upon his signal. Once the crew on the ships perished or drowned, the vessels were set ablaze with flaming arrows. The maritime attack was soundly crushed. Ramesses III then shifted his focus to the remaining land-based invaders. Employing the same tried and true tactics as before, the Sea Peoples were finally vanquished near the city of Zois in 1178 BCE. Egyptian records once again narrate a resounding victory, with many Sea Peoples slain, and the survivors taken captive. Some were conscripted into the Egyptian army and navy, while others were sold as slaves. Although Ramesses III had successfully protected Egypt from conquest, the cost of the war had drained the royal treasury. This financial strain led to a historical milestone, the first labor strike ever recorded. Workers responsible for constructing tombs in the village of Set Mart, modern Deir el Medina, refused to return to work until they were fully compensated. After their defeat by Ramesses III, the Sea Peoples fade into obscurity, with survivors possibly assimilating into Egyptian culture. No records specify their origins or mention them after 1178 BCE. However, for nearly a century, they stood as the most feared sea raiders in the Mediterranean region, constantly challenging Egypt's power and prosperity. As mentioned, there is no consensus on the true identity of the Sea Peoples. While numerous scholars passionately argue for their particular theories, the mystery surrounding these enigmatic invaders remains. Egyptian inscriptions, as discussed here, offer the most substantial information about them, apart from references in Hittite and Assyrian letters, which provide no further insights. The Sea Peoples' familiarity in the literature of Egypt, such as the Tale of Weneman, suggests that they were well-known figures in the Mediterranean landscape. The question of why these people rose against Egypt repeatedly, if indeed they did, continues to perplex historians and scholars. Historian Mark van der Meerope has expressed the view that the Sea Peoples' identity might never be known, and it's no longer worthwhile to pursue this question. He writes, "One can wonder why the Sea Peoples have engendered so much passion, and posits, why they still appear in every textbook on world history remains to be explained. The explanation is simple: the true identity of the Sea Peoples remains a mystery, and humanity has always been drawn to the mysterious, and likely always will be."